Let's see here. Come on. You can do it, YouTube Studio. Let's see here. Okay. And there we go. Okay. Okay, and I think that's most everything. And there we go. How you folks all doing? Hope you're doing well. Hello from Jonesboro, Illinois. It's my birthday today, and I get to watch the whole show for the first time in a couple of weeks. Well, happy birthday, Loosely Collected. I hope you're doing well. Sweltering Sweden. Wow. Warm Newark, Delaware. It's lovely here today. It's sunny and it's cool, which is weird because it's been real hot lately. Good morning from a summery Washington, D.C., muggy South Ontario, Texas. Finishing up my Tome Keepers and turning some Acadians into Chaos Cultists. Nice. Muggy Clearwater, Florida. How you doing? Damp Southern Pennsylvania. Rather sunny Isle of Wight. Nice. Oh, from the suburbs of Chicago. The suburbs of Chicago is what I was trying to say, but that's not actually a thing. Let's see. Getting my wet palette set up for a quiet morning of painting. Nice. Morning from Pittsburgh. First every other Sunday show I've got to catch since October. Wow, nice. Well, we're glad to have you. Good morning from North Salt Lake, Plumstead, London. Got plenty of coffee. That's all that matters. Yes, I have some coffee as well, thankfully. Good morning from Nova, Northern Virginia, Ottawa, Missouri, Alberta, Canada. DJ Todd P. Harris. Good morning from cloudy Columbus. Running my FDM printer as we speak. Nice. Let's see here. Watching from West Bend, Wisconsin. Nice. Netherlands, Cleveland, Minnesota, Massachusetts, Toronto. On coffee number 3, not jittery yet at all. Nice. Greetings from Detroit, Nerd Bunker, listening while working out, but plan to base some Middle-earth strategy battle game wargs later today. Nice. Let me see here. Boston, super hot today. Good day to be in the cool basement working on Horus Heresy minis. Nice, yeah. Good morning from steamy Hopkinton, Massachusetts. Going to be a scorcher. Nice. 100 degrees cooking in Shanghai. How you doing? Kelly, howdy. Good morning from the post-vacation Canton, Georgia. No more vacations until I get some rest. Yeah, they will tire you out. Greetings from Cincinnati. Celebrating my late-night victory. Grimdark Brit -1. Complicated Excel spreadsheet 0. Oh, wait. No, I see. Grimdark Brit 1. Complicated Excel spreadsheet 0. There you go. Nice. I am no good with spreadsheets. I'm just terrible with them. Beautiful morning here in the mountains of Montana. How you doing? Texas, Northern Italy. Probably going to get some prime. Probably going to prime some buildings. It's a hot Sunday, and the idea of wearing a respirator is waning my resolve. That'll happen. Yeah, I can understand that. Eating from Poland. Morning from Quebec. Morning from Chicago. Got loads of treacle ready to paint for the new Sylvaneth book. Nice. I like the word treacle. It's a lot of fun to say. VJ Morph, how you doing? Good morning, Adam. You've become part of my Sunday morning ritual. Well, every other Sunday, but I appreciate that. I'm glad to have you here. Good morning from Pensacola, Florida, where we are ready for our first Necromunda campaign. Nice. Good morning from Indy. I'll be in Indiana, I don't know, 40 days, something like that, for whatever that thing is, Gen Con that I go to. Yes. Aberdeen, Scotland, working my way through new Horus Heresy box set. I took some time yesterday morning. If you follow me on Twitter, you would have seen it. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you can. It's free. It's at Tabletop Minions, strangely enough. But yesterday morning, I took some time and I built the 2 Praetor, I think they're called, dudes, the bigger dudes, for the Horus Heresy box, the 2 leaders or whatever. I didn't put their capes on them because just no capes. I'm just tired of capes. I mean, they're fun to paint and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not using these guys for Horus heresy per se. Initially I was going to build these guys and make 2 Horus heresy kill teams using that Age of Darkness ossified mod for kill team. I have since changed my mind. I'm actually going to use one-page rules, Grimdark Future Firefight, which is their sci-fi skirmish rule set, and I'm going to use that instead of the kill team rules. I just like, from what I've been reading and everything, and just the messing around I've done with the game loop, just with some proxies and stuff, I just like it better. And unlike the giant multi-billion-dollar corporation, Games Workshop, you may have heard of them, One Page Rules has a web builder for building your forces. You just do it right there on the web, and it's super, super easy. Barely an inconvenience. And so, yeah, I like that. So anyway, still working on models. Just they're not going to be Horus Heresy. I'm just going to use those models because, they're pretty cool. Is that an impressive bourbon collection behind you? It's not that impressive, no, but it is. There is some bourbon back there and other stuff. I got more bourbon in another, but yeah. Central Scotland just made it in from the garden center. I got a different thing altogether. Back to bed for 3 hours after this before I get up and head off to the UK. We'll have a good trip, and say hi to the UK for me. Was planning on going in 2020. Did not turn out, strangely enough. Morning from Florida, painting some Sisters Repentia. Nice. Hello from Newfoundland, listening to you while I paint some converted warp talons. Howdy. Hello from Sweden. It's almost too hot, but I'm painting up my Chaos Knight army. Yeah, I've been hearing that it's hot in Sweden. That's a bummer. No capes, indeed. Yes. Greetings once again from Zionsville, Indiana. Messing around with the new Cargo 8 kit. Amazing suspension details and customizability. I don't know if that's a word. Customizability. Maybe. Cargo space fits a Coke can perfectly too. Ooh, interesting. I got distracted building Star Blazers ship kits this week. That'll happen. Adam, I came to the same conclusion about Grimdark Future Firefighter, whatever. Yeah, name could use a bit of work, but basically, yeah. Grimdark Future Firefight. I think that it is, yeah, that's definitely the direction I'm going to head in with, specifically those models, and then very possibly I'll just start repurposing a bunch of the, well, not zillions, 8 or 9 other kits that I've got that are kill teams that I built and painted for kill team, and maybe I'll just start converting those all over as well. So there you go. Grimdark Future Firefight is my gaming group's favorite new thing. We love the game, the big game, and the skirmish game. Great way to join in the Horus Heresy hype. Nice. Yeah. Pitch meeting reference, indeed. Old Crow is wonderful and cheap bourbon. Old Crow. I have some Wild Turkey 101. I don't know if I have any Old Crow. Has anyone asked about Adam's thoughts on the new contrast and shades? No. Well, I mean, not here, not so far in this show. I mean, more contrast is always awesome. I love contrast paints, use them all the time. The fact that there are more colors, was it like 25, 26, 27 new colors, something like that? Awesome. Very big fan of that concept. The washes are allegedly reformulated, and I have not had a chance yet to find out what that means. You know what I mean? Also, and this is a thing that's also slightly concerning to me, the bottles for the new washes. So you know how back in the day, washes were in the same small bottles that regular opaque paints were in. And then they made them in those super tall bottles, those tall boys. So those pots were like way taller and way bigger and stuff like that. And then when contrast came out, they were a pot size that was between the little ones and the big tall boys. It looks like the new washes are coming in the same size pots as the contrasts, which is fine probably, but it will be very interesting to see whether they lower the price of the washes since they're going to be less wash inside. If I had to guess, I would say they're not going to, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I don't know. but we'll find out. I think sometime next week is when they go on pre-order, so we'll see. But they're not the tall boys that they were. I'm pretty sure. In all the pictures they show them, they look like they're the same size pot as the contrast paints. And if they keep charging tall boy prices for contrast paint size bottles of the washes, shades, whatever you want to call them, I'm going to keep calling them washes probably, then that will not surprise me. It'll be a bummer, but it won't surprise me. Just in time after visiting some friends while recovering from my Horus heresy. Oh, while recovering my Horus heresy 2 goodies bundle. Nice. You certainly don't need a cape in this humidity, that's for sure. Castleberry, Florida, almost done with my Demons of Zinch Start Collecting box. Nice. Gerdaf. Well, see, there you go. That's... Adam, I asked you about Kill Team and or Necromunda for my 9-year-old a little while back. Found Octarius at my FLGS last night. Going to build that while you chat me up. Thanks. Not a problem, Nick. Absolutely. Capes increase style points by at least 2 times, though. I mean, capes are fun to paint. I'm not going to lie. They're kind of fun to paint. But I'm looking at these models and I'm not going to make them Horus Heresy. Like I'm probably going to swap the heads. I've only built the 2 big dudes. And I got rid of no hair crests, no top knots, all that crap. Got rid of that. Like, I like the overall silhouette of those guys in the armor. There's too much crap going on for what I want in my head. But, you know, what are you going to do? Lord knows it's better than if they were, like, regular 40K guys. They would just be all the power armor would just be made of skulls on top of skulls with wings with skulls on them and skulls with wings on them. And just, there are still some skulls on the Praetors, but for the most part, regular Horus Heresy dudes don't have skulls too much, which is nice. I'm going to get rid of the beakies on the little guys that I'm going to build, because each of those army lists, or whatever you want to call them, warbands, is only 4 models for 250 points. I'm going against the whole concept of boys before toys. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but generally in list building, it is better to have more models than it is to have more expensive models, meaning, well, I'm going to put this guy, a special weapon on this guy, a special weapon on this guy, and it's better to just have 2 more guys than to spend it all on special weapons. I don't care. I'm going to put some special weapons on these guys. So that's why there's only 4 per side. So yeah, but I don't want them to be Horus Heresy guys. I'm going to make up my own headcanon or whatever. And speaking of headcanon, I'm going to get rid of their beaky heads and put on some other sort of head. One of the Praetor guys, I just found a different head and put him on it because he just looked weird. I didn't like it. So it's your game. You can do what you want. Really interested in one of the new washes that looking like it will auto finish Imperial Stormtroopers. Yes, there's a wash that's like a super light gray, and I feel like it will work even better than Apothecary White. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. I'd like to test it out. Just basically prime it white, whatever the model is, Stormtrooper in this situation, and then just slop this stuff on there, let it dry, do a little bit of dry brush with a makeup brush to pop the whites up again a little bit in the raised areas. Boom, done. Yeah, could be. Wild Turkey 101 is a great balance of price and quality. And it's 101, so that's not so bad either. Same money for a smaller pot or even more money for a smaller pot. It's all good marketing. I mean, yeah, I don't know yet. Again, I'm guessing. But it looks from the pictures as if the new washes come in the same size pots as the contrast, which, to be perfectly honest, makes kind of sense, because then they don't have to be, producing 3 different sizes of pots all the time and all that kind of stuff. I get that. But if they decide to take the washes, which I think were, I don't know how much the big tall boy washes were, $7.80, $7.60, something like that. If the new ones come out in smaller pots, but they're the same price, that, again, won't surprise me a bit. When are the new contrasts coming out? I thought it was the 15th, but it looked like last night I still didn't see them. Sometime in July. I think they might be going pre-order the 2nd, July 2nd, at least here in the States. I'm not sure, actually. I know some people are already able to, talk about them and stuff like that, but those are the people I think that went over to England for that Horus Heresy thing. So I'm assuming they must have also got to see the new paints, maybe not everybody, but some of them maybe did. I don't know, but I know that there were some folks that have already put out videos about the new stuff, the different colors and things like that and whatever. So Have you ever met Oshkosh's other famous face, Dylan Prostel or Postal? But I don't think so. I'm not familiar. Let's see here. My one hesitation was that GW invited all these YouTube creators to the UK to try out the new contrast, so I'm worried we aren't getting unbiased opinions because of GW NDAs. I mean, I don't think that that's how it works. I know a lot of people think that that's how it works. But, like, the things that... I haven't really seen... I haven't looked real close at the newest NDA. I signed an NDA back in 2017. It's a requirement if you want them to send you stuff. You have to sign a thing that basically says, we will give you a date at which point you can talk about this. You can't talk about it before that. Cool. I know there was a bunch of hubbub last year about how this NDA thing that was going around that was leaked or whatever said that you can't talk bad about GW or whatever. That's kind of boilerplate. That's not to say you can't review something and say, I don't like this thing, or this is not my jam, or whatever the deal is. It means you can't say, like, defamatory stuff about the company. That's not in mine, but it's kind of boilerplate for NDAs in general. But a lot of people took it as like, oh, that means you can't give a bad review. That's not, from what I understand, the case in any way. It's that you're not supposed to try to, like, defame the company overall or something. I don't know. It's legal crap. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, from what I know, like, GW, from the stuff that I've done, GW has never been like, hey, you know, you can't say that or anything along that lines. I say stuff about their, frankly, sometimes dumb practices all the time, but they still keep sending me stuff, you know, here and there. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I thought, speaking of headcanon, I'm giving them helmets. I was going to end in headcanons. I don't think I could give them headcanons. I don't have models for that. I could make some 3D models maybe. That'd be kind of cool. But I was just thinking headcanon, helmets go in your head. That's basically the case. Pots get smaller. When do we pay less? Again, I'm wondering. I don't know. I don't know what the price on these new washes are, and I'm not even 100% sure. It's just like in the pictures when they show them next to each other, they look like they're the same pots as the contrast ones. And if you've bought a wash shade in some time, you know that they generally always now come in those big tall boys, and these don't look like that from the pictures. And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I mean, whatever. But again, like I said, I do wonder, because you're seeing that a lot right now. There's, what do they call it? It's not inflation. They call it something else. And basically what it is that, well, we didn't raise the price of our product. There used to be 65 of them in the box, and now there's only 60. But the price is the same. And you're like, yeah, but now I get less stuff for the same price. But it's a PR move is what it is. But again, I don't know that for sure. If I didn't have a ridiculous box of models already, I might consider buying that Horus Heresy box, which is good value. I mean, it seems like it's decent value for GW, for sure. Absolutely. Let's see here. From the reviews, considering using the new Black Legion contrast to help paint black armor. Oh, that's cool. You mentioned one-page rules in the video. Do you like it? Is there a chance that you play it? Yeah, I mean, I was just talking about how that's the Grimdark Future Firefight is my, like, that's what I'm doing these Horus Heresy models for, is I want to play the skirmish sci-fi game. I've been building armies. I've messed with, it's what I call the play cycle. I mean, other people call it that too, or the play loop. Sometimes instead of sitting down and playing a full game, I just grab some random models or even just sometimes dice or whatever. Okay, so this has got this range and this is how this guy rolls. And then this is how this guy defends. And like, okay, and now it's this guy's turn. And you just run through rules just to do two things. Number one, to kind of solidify them in your head. It's really kind of, people ask me, they'll say stuff like, I read these rules, I just don't understand the game. I just don't get it. I always say, when you first read the rules, they won't make any sense. You stumble through a game or two and then go back and read the rules again. You'll be amazed at all of a sudden everything will just it'd be like the scales fell from your eyes. And you're like, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. But you have to stumble through the game a couple of times. You have to physically sit down and do it. I've had plenty of people who are like, I read the rules and they don't make any sense to me. I think it must be a bad game. And I'm like, did you try playing it? And they're like, well, no. You kind of have to do that. You know what I mean? It's kind of the same thing like I made the video about, you can't just watch YouTube videos about painting and then go, well, I know everything about painting now. but it doesn't seem to work. So there's something wrong. No, you have to learn these things and then actually do it to get better. You actually have to do it and practice. It's the 10-90 thing. You know, 10% of the time, watch YouTube videos and learn stuff. 90% of the time, bristles on plastic or metal or resin or whatever. So there. Shrinkflation, that's the term. Good point. Headcanons sound like Turnip 28. That's true. If any game's going to have headcanons, it's going to be Turnip 28. Hello from the Thumb of West Virginia. Agree with Friday's videos. I hate doing tournaments to the point that I left the last one just after one game. So no to competition other than just having fun with friends. Yeah. I don't like the tall boys anyway. Don't fit in my paint containers. I use, the little things I use to keep my paints in are actually made for, nail polish. So they're tall. They can be tall anyway. Yeah. Skimpflation. I like that one too. The shades do look like the same size as contrast, but they still use the big pots for air. I thought they were getting rid of the air line. I thought I just read that someplace, that the airbrush line is going away. And I got to be honest with you. I liked that they made an airbrush line, you know, good on them, but they put them in pots, which is nearly impossible to get that stuff into your airbrush. Is just the case. If you're looking for good airbrush paints right now, by the way, I would tell you to go look at the Army Painter. They make a line of airbrush paints that are spectacular. I've been using them pretty much exclusively, and I never have to add anything to them, and I never get a clog. Like, I don't ever add flow improver or water or bourbon or milk or anything like that. I don't add anything to it. Just like drip, drip, drip out at the thing into the, and then you paint it on there, and it's great. And the other thing that's great about them too, that I like a lot, is the fact that a bunch of birds, they come in triads. So like the colors, you can buy them, there'll be a base red, a mid red, and a high red. And they are all the same hue of red, let's say. And then that way you can easily blend and go, well, I'm going to use the base and then the mid, and then kind of do a nice fade and stuff like that. It works awesome. They're great. Did I miss the bit about the hole in the house? No, I have not particularly talked about that yet. First Citadel air range came out in small pots. Somewhere along the line, they moved to larger pots. Now they're discontinuing the line altogether. Interesting. That wash that they brought out for the Indominus Necrons was already in the contrast size paints. Cryptek Armor Shade. They sold that for the same size as the shades. Same price as the other shades? Yeah. Afternoon, Uncle Adam. Hope you've had a good week. Just wanted to thank you for all your great content. You've been an incredible resource helping me get back in the hobby. Well, that's very nice of you to say, Tom. I appreciate that. I'm glad to hear you're back in the hobby, too. I got eliminated first in our Friday Night Gaslands game. All three of my vehicles exploded before Gate 3. Only consolation was one of my exploding cars caused a chain reaction explosion. Chain reactions are the best reactions, in my opinion. I know literally 0 people that use the GW airbrush paints with an airbrush. I have used 2 colors in the past, and then I stopped because it was such a pain in the butt trying to get those paints to go into my airbrush. Now, I'm sure you could be like, oh yeah, we'll just get a dropper squeezy pipette thing and everything. But I'm like, but then you have to try to clean it out, and then you just, it's a bit, yeah. Hi, Uncle Adam, recent Patreon supporter. Thanks for helping me along and learning about the hobby. Well, I appreciate that, Jeff. I appreciate that. Thanks for the support as well. I appreciate that as well. I tried using their air paint in an airbrush. Bad results. I didn't have... Once I got it in the airbrush, it worked fine, I thought. But it was... Yeah. As someone who is literally putting Macragge blue... Is it Macragge or Macragge? Anyway, blue into a dropper bottle for airbrushing, as you discussed this, the GW pots suck. Yeah, that's the thing. If I was, like, I've never been interested... I've got friends that have put GW paints into dropper bottles. I have never found the GW opaque paints to be to my liking enough to go through the rigmarole of actually putting all those things and transferring it, and it's a whole thing. But if you like the paints, then that's a good way to do it, because then you have them in droppers, you can put them on your wet palette. It's way easier. It's great. And I don't want to put their washes or their contrast paints into dropper bottles, because I like to actually dip in the pot for those, as problematic as the pots can be, where they get clogged and you can't close the top properly, all that stuff. But I still prefer that for those types of paints. Putting their airbrush paints into dropper bottles, though, makes perfect sense. Like if I had to match colors and I needed their airbrush paint specifically, I could see going through the time, especially if I had a bunch of them, then I could see going through that. But honestly, now that Army Painter makes their own airbrush paints and they work great, I don't see the point. I just buy the airbrush paints from Army Painter. I really like them. Let's see here. Is Army Painter better than AK in your opinion then for airbrush? I've never used AK. Well, I've never used any AK paints. I used to use Streak and Grime from them, but that's, yeah, I've never used any of their paints. Love some Gaslands game. That's Spin Out. Nice. What's your thoughts on the new paints and the whole? The contrasts and the new washes, I haven't really got a chance to mess with them. I love contrast paints, so having more colors to choose from, because I don't like to blend or mix things, is great. So I don't have any problems there. It's going to make my hobby desk messier, probably. My main concern is the washes, because I absolutely adore Nuln Oil, Seraphim Sepia, Agrax Earthshade, Reichland Flesh Shade to a degree, and a couple others, Athonian Camo Shade, stuff like that. And the fact that they've reformulated them, we'll see how it works out. I mean, just because maybe they made them better, but they may not be better for my painting style, and then that will make me sad. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. But hopefully we'll find out soon. Do you have a P.O. box address? I know you must receive lots of minis, but we have a mountain of stuff we'd like to send you. If you go to the channel page for Tabletop Minions on YouTube, and then there's an About tab. If you click on the About tab, it goes to there's an address thing in there that tells you I do have a P.O. box. So yeah, you can send stuff to a P.O. box there if you want to. But yeah, it's just on the channel, on the main Tabletop Minions channel page on YouTube, and you click on the About tab. I just bought about a dozen Vallejo air paints. How would you say they compare to Army Painter? The Army, the one thing that I like better about the Army Painter, because the air paints, like Model Air, I use Model Air, specifically Model Air Metallic. I use that all the time. But even just regular Model Air, they're fine. I like them. I've never had any trouble with them. Don't clog. At least I don't find them to clog. And the Game Air, same. The thing that I like more about the Army Painter ones is just the fact that they come in those triads where you get those three colors. So when you are like trying to do a cool blend, let's say on a cape with an airbrush, and you're trying to like find another color that is just like this Vallejo Game Air color or whatever, but you need it to be lighter, you know, like the next tint up, you know, that kind of thing. It can be troublesome. And I'm assuming they're like, we'll just add white to it. And I'm like, the nice thing about Army Painter is that the colors are all matched in trios, in triads is what they call them. They're not the first people to come up with triads in painting. Reaper's been doing it forever too, where you can buy 3 bottles that are like the same exact color. It's just there's a base color, a highlight, and another highlight, or a base, a mid, and a highlight. So that's really nice, because sometimes you'll be like, oh, I'm going to highlight this red with this lighter red, and then you get it on there and then it dries and you're like, one of these reds is not like the other. You know what I mean? Within color, there's 2 main values. There's hue, which is the actual color, you know, it's a warm red, or it is a, you know, a yellow green or whatever, something like that. And then there's also value, which either, as you darken it, it becomes a shade of the original color, whatever the color was you picked. And as you lighten it, it becomes a tint. So you have hue. So if this is, let's say you had a rainbow that was like this long, right? So you pick your color here, hue. As you add white to it, it goes lighter, and you add dark to it, it goes darker, or black to it. But it does not shift and go like this is a specific green, like a dead-on middle green, but it can become a cooler green as it heads more towards blue, or it can become a slightly warmer green as it heads more towards yellow. And so that's the hue. And so the nice thing about those Army Painter paints is that when you buy a triad of colors, they're all exactly the same hue. It's just lighter and darker, and they don't shift this way at all. When you're trying to come up with colors yourself and go, this one looks like a lighter version of this one, but that for me is a bummer. So No Nick today, Tabletop Minions. He is in the sunroom. My wife had band practice yesterday. She is playing. There's a big thing that goes on in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a huge music festival that goes on every summer called Summerfest. And on some tiny little stage somewhere at Summerfest, she and two other friends have kind of a gig that they do from time to time, like a band sort of. And so they're going to be playing a stage at Summerfest this year, which is cool. And so, again, it's a small little stage out, and I have no idea where. Anyway, but so there was some practice yesterday. So can't drill a hole in your house if you live in a multi-apartment concrete building. Well, not with that attitude. Technically, you can drill a hole through brick. I saw videos about it as I was doing research on how to do this. But yes, there is that. If it's an apartment or even a rental and you live in a house, you probably should not drill a hole in it because they're going to be like, hey, I didn't want you to do that. And it's, that's how landlords work. But this is our house. So yes. Ninjon did a video going through each new contrast thing he was most excited for are the ones that only use a single pigment. There's also the new one called something sewer. It looks incredible. Well, that's cool. Let's see here. Gotta go. Seems my washing machine is catching fire. Well, that's not good. That's not good at all. Greetings from Poland. How you doing? Bloody hard to get Pro-Acryl over here in Australia unless they have finally sorted out an Australian distributor since I last looked. I believe they did. I swear it was on Facebook not too long ago. 2 weeks ago? Something like that. There was an announcement. It was either Twitter or Facebook, but I think it was Facebook that said that they now do have a distributor in Australia, by the way. When will we get to see some Forbidden Psalm or Turnip 28 miniatures? Oops. I'm not sure about Turnip 28 right now. I know that Max is working on a skirmish version. Well, I'm pretty sure he's working on a skirmish version. I'm pretty sure he told me that. So then when there's a skirmish version of it, then I'm definitely going to hop on board. Forbidden Psalm, I am probably right after I get the game launched, the new game that Vince and I are working on. When that gets launched, then I will be able to, because I'm not even able to really, I don't think I'll even really be able to finish the, like I took time yesterday morning and worked on those two Praetors or whatever they're called from Horus Heresy. But the rest of the guys I got to build, I'm probably going to have to wait until we launch the game, because basically from now until that time, most of my free time is just, between my day job and Tabletop Minions. The rest of the free time is just all working on the game. Yesterday after lunch, I only worked on those two models in the morning, and then after lunch from then on until like dinner, and then after dinner it was just doing layout. So yeah, it'll probably be a little while, but I do want to do, I have some terrain already primed for Forbidden Psalm The Last War, which is the alternate history World War II thing that they put out. And now they're working on, or will be soon launching, I guess, a cyberpunk version of it as well. Because someone made a version of Morkborg called Cyborg, which seems kind of on the nose. That makes sense. Which is a cyberpunk version of Morkborg. And so now I believe Kevin who did Forbidden Psalm is now working with them to do a cyberpunk version of Forbidden Psalm. So now you're going to have either fantasy, alternate history, World War I, or cyberpunk eventually be able to do if you want to do any of those in Forbidden Psalm, which is very cool. Falling in love with Pro-Acryl paints. The white's so good. It is. It's the best white in the business, I think. Another place to do research on drilling a hole in your house is those new ductless AC units. Oh, yeah, I did see some people talking about that too. The main video that helped me the most was about, I think, a dryer vent, which is basically what I installed. So the way that I did it after doing some research is, first thing as I did is I bought a long drill bit. I forget the size, like diameter, ½ inch? No, Probably not. 3/8? I don't know. Maybe it's 1/2 inch. I'm not sure. But it was long, probably at least a good foot long. And then I kind of did a bunch of measuring and eyeballing and whatnot, and then figured out in the airbrush room downstairs, if I drill here, I have a pretty good idea where it's going to come out. And I was pretty close. So I drilled from the inside of the house out. Now, an important thing to know is our house has vinyl siding too, which I was concerned about breaking. So, so I drill out, very easy. Oh, it's surprisingly easy. I'm like, okay, so I go outside. I'm like, oh yeah, there's the hole. Nice. Okay, cool. Now, here's the important bit, right? It's a 4-inch hole. So I bought a 4-inch hole saw, which is basically like a big drill bit that, well, it's not a big, it's a normal size drill bit, but then it has this round cup sort of thing with teeth around the edge that's on the drill bit, and you use the little drill, you put it in the pilot hole you've made, and then you drill in to the house. Now the thing is that, so it has these sharp teeth that kind of go like this all the way around it. And when you are drilling into something, those teeth go against whatever it is you're drilling against. When you want to go through the vinyl, you actually go the other direction. You set the drill, because drills can either go forward or backward for the most part. So instead of like drilling that way, because it will then catch, for whatever reason, sometimes, very frequently, hole saws will catch in the vinyl. And then if it does that, it can just shatter part of the vinyl, and then you've got a huge mess, which I'm like, that was what I really, really wanted to not have happen. So as it turns out, what you do is you run the drill the other way. So instead of these teeth going against whatever you're trying to cut, they're sliding against it this way, like little tiny jaws, little sharks, you know what I mean? They're just like sliding against it. So you're running against it, going the wrong way, basically. I'm trying not to keep banging the mic. And you keep doing that, and you're pushing, and you are basically creating a circle on your vinyl until it eventually sort of scores all the way through and just cuts through the vinyl that way. And then once you've done that, then what you should do is pull that part out, and then it's now time to start drilling the proper way. Now, it probably would have been a good idea for me to lubricate the blade, maybe? I don't know. It was really hard to drill through the house. It was thick. It was, the stuff that I pulled out of there was easily, like, that hole was a 4-inch hole. I probably pulled at least 4 inches of stuff out of the house, maybe a little bit more. And there were multiple layers of things and whatever. And the drill that I was using was a plug-in drill with a 1/2-inch chuck, and I've had it for a decade. And as I'm drilling it, and sometimes getting caught and then backing it up a little bit and going again and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not a drill scientist, but at one point I'm like, there seems like is that steam? That's not steam, is it? Maybe that's smoke. I don't know. Anyway, just keep going. And then eventually I'm like, oh, that's smoke. That's a lot of smoke. And so at one point I finally stopped, and I like pulled it out, and then I was holding it, and my wife comes around the corner, and there's just smoke just pouring out of it. I'm like, I think there's something wrong. And she's like, that doesn't look good. And then I grab it and I pull the trigger, and then sparks shoot all over the place. So then we unplugged it. Luckily, I have a backup drill, which I had actually just purchased because I didn't think I had a 1/2-inch chuck with it, or I didn't think I had a drill with a 1/2-inch chuck. So I bought an inexpensive plug-in drill. And I'm like, well, if I don't use this, I'll just return it. Well, good thing to have a backup. And then I got it all set up, and it was like literally I was almost home. I was almost there, and then I get everything, and I just, oh, okay, great. So now the rest of the way. Another tip that I can give you, if you're going to be putting a dryer vent cover over that hole, which is what I did, so animals can't get in and whatnot. If it's a 4-inch hole, you actually need a 4¼ inch hole. Yeah, it was one of those things where I open up the instructions after I've drilled the hole, and now I'm going to figure out how to put this the vent in there. And it's like, okay, first thing first, drill a 4¼ inch hole. Don't drill a 4-inch hole. And I'm like, son of a... So that's why God invented Dremels, because the problem is that though the metal tube that goes through the hole is exactly 4 inches, and I was able to fit it in there with no problem, and it was real nice and snug, the plastic thing goes over the tube on the outside of the house, and then has and so that won't go into the hole because it's bigger than the 4 inches and stuff. So I had to Dremel around the edges a bit, and it's fine. But just in case you're wondering. On topic, I don't vent my resin SLA printers outside, but I do vent the laser engraver cutter because cutting wood or plastic can get quite stinky. It's true. I don't like what I know of the fumes that come out of resin printers, so that's why I'm doing this. Also, that room does not have a window, so it's just helpful in general. For airbrushing, it doesn't particularly matter because I use compressed air with an air compressor, strangely enough. So I don't have to worry about fumes with the airbrush. You still have to worry about particulates and stuff going up your nose. So that's why I wear a respirator. And I have a little, one of those little hoods, that you turn it on and it sucks the stuff into a filter. But I don't blow that outside because I don't care. Now, if I was going to start rattle canning in the house using that hood, then I would definitely be blowing it outside. But I don't rattle can in the house. I just use that for airbrushing. So there's no fumes, just particulates. A mask, like I said, respirator works with the filter. Awesome, not a problem. But that now for the thing. And the thing is that it's not just like I've just put a hole in and like, okay, well, that'll do the job. No, it just showed up yesterday. It's back behind me. I ordered an enclosure, which is designed for 3D printers. It's kind of like a tent. Kind of like a grow tent almost, and you put it over there, but it also has a fan built into it that goes to a 4-inch hose. So that will suck out the stuff and blow it outside. So I'm looking forward to getting that set up. But again, it's going to be after launch of the new game, unfortunately. Lean into it, cut without mercy or remorse. It's true. Fixing to do a white scars army. I was wondering about Pro-Acryl white. I think it's great. I think it's probably the best white out there. If I was going to do white scars, here's what I'd do. I'd prime white probably with white primer from Pro-Acryl because Monument's white primer is the best white primer I've used as well. I don't know how they keep doing it, but they do. I used to use the white primer from Vallejo, like the surface airbrush primer, and I was fine with it, but I'm like, yeah, it clogs. I mean, I get dry tip and I have to kind of, but it's otherwise never had that problem with the Monument white. Don't know why, but I've never had the problem. Anyway, what was my point? Oh, so I would probably prime the White Scars guys white with that, and then I would probably take a look at that new wash that GW is putting out, the new shade. I forget what it's called, but it's basically like a super, super, super light gray, and then you could slap that on the model, and then go back and do a dry brush in some spots so that it kind of pops out like there's a raised part that needs to be more white, but you want down in the crevices it to be slightly gray. You know what I mean? And then go from there. That's what I would do. Washing machine needs to be plugged into a GFCI outlet. That should trip before a fire starts. Well, that would be good, yeah. I know you used to do a content creation YouTube class. Any chance you would do that again? Hey, Bleep Bloop. I don't know. I haven't taught in a while at AdeptCon and places like that. And I don't know. Maybe. Vinyl siding comes off like a helicopter crash. Yeah, see, that's what I was trying to watch out for. Yeah, you're right. It's not. I'm not a drillologist. That's a good point. You can get a little smoke off a hole saw. The smoke wasn't coming out off the saw. It was coming out of the sides of the drill. Initially, I was like, huh. And then after a while, I was like, oh, yeah, it was no good. Didn't anoint with the required oils. That's true. Yeah, no, I did not think about that. You also need a mesh on your vent cover to keep the little critters out. Yeah, that'll be coming next. I'm going to put it on there. I like to, whenever I do any kind of building or stuff like that, I am an over-engineering person. Like I'm like, 2 bolts would work, but what about 5? Or something like that. So I'm always, yeah. So the concept, not only do I want to put a mesh thing in there to keep out squirrels or something. Carlson is talking to the birds out the window. It's funny. He's making his little chattering noises at the birds. We haven't had the windows open in like a week because it's been hot. Anyway, so not only am I want to put a mesh thing in there to keep out critters, mice, and whatever, also there's a part of me that wants to put a valve in there too. So like in the winter, I can close it because otherwise it's just gonna be cold air coming in. Is there like, every once in a while you go to like do some laundry and you open up the dryer and you're like, why is it so cold in here? Like, oh yeah, because it's -10 outside and all that is between my hand and the outdoors, out that vent is like 3 little flaps of plastic on the dryer vent thing, you know. So I kind of want to do a little flue sort of thing. I've looked, you can buy them. So not locally, unfortunately. I can get them on Amazon, it seems. Good morning, yeah. Good morning, Uncle Adam. Thank you for doing the show and all the videos. I got my dose of hobby talk by watching and listening to your videos while painting. Best hobby time of the week. Well, absolutely, Game Masters. I appreciate it. We keep the resin printer at work under a laboratory fume hood. Yeah, I thought about a hood for a hot second, like just a plain old hood that you turn on, like the ones that you get for like stoves and stuff, but that's not quite as useful. So this tent thing is designed for this, and I was like, it should probably work. Still afraid of plastic fumes, I think. Old lessons that might not be relevant still die hard. Yeah, no, I can understand that. Tools run on magic smoke. Once you let all the smoke out, it does not work anymore. That's what happened in this situation, yeah. My entire DIY history can be summed up by, is that smoke? Yeah. And just back from disc golf course. I haven't played disc golf in forever. We used to work with fiberglass sleeves for columns. I hated cutting it. The dust would irritate my skin to no end. Yeah, fiberglass is a real pain. Don't be using the grow tent for them funny cigarettes. No. I mean, first of all, I don't smoke anymore, so there's that. Secondly, it's not legal in our state, technically. Delta 8 is legal in Wisconsin, unintentionally, but Delta 9 is not. I didn't know that there was a difference. I didn't know what the heck that meant until someone told me, and then I was like, really? Because I'm like, I swear to God, there's a weed shop downtown, and there's one out by the highway, too. Weed's not legal here. And they're like, well, Delta 9's not, but Delta 8 is. And I was like, do what now? And it turns out there are different classifications of THC or something, and at some point, a couple of years ago, Wisconsin made it very clear that Delta 9 was illegal, and everyone's like, yeah, but what about Delta 8? And they were like, what? And then now all kinds of places sell Delta 8 stuff, which is a loophole which will probably get closed by the Tavern League eventually, but I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, so technically you can go buy, I mean, like, I've been into one of those stores to check it out, and it's like jars, like acrylic, you know, airtight jars of what looks like weed, you know, like big chunks of weed. And it is, it's a different strain that has a different type of THC, which is evidently legal in Wisconsin. But the regular, and it's also milder from what I've been told. And like you have less, like paranoia and stuff like that. I'm like, well, I don't want either of those things either. So yeah, that sounds great. I don't know. I don't know if it does the same thing. Like if you're like sick, like if you're on like chemo or something like that, then a lot of times weed is you know, medical weed is the idea so you can eat, right? And I don't know if this does that same thing or not. I have no idea. Anyway, there you go. Now you've learned what I know about weed, I guess. That's about it. Nonetheless, I'm not a plantologist, so I'm not going to be building any of that kind of stuff either. My wife did plant a plum tree outside, though, so someday I'm going to get to eat plums. It'll be awesome. On the topic of toxicity, I found out most cutting boards have some nasty chemicals like BPA that can leach into your skin and cause health problems long term, but I found chemical-free from EcoPeco. I've never heard of them. That's interesting. Let's see here. Don't they have a pharmaceutical solution for dry tip now? I'm sure there is some sort of commercial with a litany of side effects. Well, yeah, sure. You know, you can get something for dry tip now, but it clogs your airbrush. And also nausea and diarrhea. I'm making that up. Every machine is a smoke machine if used wrong enough. That's true. That's very true. My basement used to have a dryer in it, so I installed a range hood and hooked up the existing dryer vent. My landlord helped me put it in because he's cool. Well, that's nice. Hey, Adam, are you still using Twitch? Yeah, every twice a week. Where's the button? There it is. Yep, I'm on Twitch Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central for 3 hours, and on Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Central for 3 hours. Actually, what's today? The 26th? I think in 3 days. So I think maybe Friday. This upcoming Friday, I might have my 2-year anniversary stream. Actually, yeah. Oh, I gotta push the button again. Sorry. Yeah. Because I technically started I got affiliate before June of 2020. I had just been streaming me playing, I don't know, like Grand Theft Auto 5. So I did that on and off here and there and stuff like that. And then people would come in and watch, and I would tell people about it and stuff. And then eventually I got affiliate. And then I decided to start doing the hobby streams twice a week in late June. My first hobby stream ever was in late June of 2020. Like the 29th, I think is what it was. And so, yeah, so I started doing that, and I've been doing it pretty much ever since. And so, yeah, it'll be 2 years. And I got partner in... I started in late June 2020, and I got partner in August or September of 2020. I'd have to look it up. So this upcoming August/September will be 2 years of partner. And maybe I'll have some sort of anniversary thing. I was gonna say I'd wear a party hat, but the problem is I keep clunking it against the camera because it's pretty close. Anyway, but yeah, still using Twitch, enjoying it. Just got finished painting a Broken Anvil Miniatures skeleton assassin guy from Rivenstone. Well, he's not technically from Rivenstone. He's a prototype that they originally made before Rivenstone, but he's in the same line as Rivenstone. Let's see here. Get rid of fiberglass with a cold shower. Interesting. I missed a year, but I'm going back to Gen Con in August. Going to reward myself with a new Fezorama Fez. Yeah, I'm hoping they're going to be there this year. I haven't looked at the list this year, but I'm assuming they're going to be there. They weren't there last year. But if they're there this year, then I'm going to be buying probably my 6th Fez, which I think after that I start getting a discount. They should give me a special badge that says, hey, you've bought 6 Fezes, now you get a discount. I don't know if that's true. I'm making it up. But although I swear to God, she did tell me once that, because I just joked one time when I was there, 2018 or 2019, and I was like, I've bought enough Fezes. Is there like a volume discount at some point? And I swear to God, she said you start getting 20% off after you buy 6. But she might have been kidding. She was probably kidding. I spent all week fiberglassing the front of a race car for the engineering department at work. I quickly remembered how much I hate fiberglassing. It does sound bad. My state just legalized the good stuff. Gotcha. The omnipresent Tavern League appears, indeed. Tavern League sounds like something from D&D. It does, yeah. No, it's a Wisconsin thing. A wad of insulation is cheaper than a vent/baffle valve plug. Yeah, but then I got to be able to pull it in there and take it out all the time when I want to, like, when I go, hey, now is the time I would like to airbrush, or not airbrush, 3D print. Then I have to take the hose off, reach in there, pull out this thing, and then put the hose back on there. And for pretty inexpensive, I could get one of these. I think. I don't know. You're right, though. The insulation might work better, though. Cannabis is legal here. You are legally permitted to grow up to 4 plants per household, and weed shops popping up everywhere. THC helps people with PTSD. I knew I was going to get one of those wrong. Yes, PTSD, not PHTC, or PTH. Yes, yep, I got it. Uncle Adam, do you have any tips that you could share on using contrast paint for human skin? It's one of the things that I don't frequently use, I will be honest with you. Very frequently when I'm painting models, I have a tendency to use normal, like actual opaque colors for skin tones, except... like if I want really super dark skin tones, starting with Wildwood and then highlighting up a little bit is actually a nice base. It's a really nice base for like really dark skin tones. But for like Caucasian skin tones and such, you know, Gilliman Flesh is okay, but doing it over Zenithal, the only benefit to using that stuff over Zenithal is that you can, if you want people to look a little sickly, Gilliman Flesh is okay. But if you want someone to look like, you know, a robust, I don't know, maybe tanned Conan the Barbarian type dude, it's better to just probably do it with regular opaque paints. I've found personally with my painting, whatever. Mojo? No, not really. Taco time. Nice. Not too much to do in Canada during winter. If you aren't a fan of cold weather, people stay in and get stoned, watch Netflix, play computer games, eat a lot of junk food. I mean, I live in the Midwest, so I know what you're talking about to some degree. Have you had any experience with alclad lacquers with your airbrush? No, I've watched. Who did I used to watch? He hasn't published a video in quite some time. Orc Nerd Painting? I think it might have been Orc Nerd Painting, something like that on YouTube. And he likes to use that stuff quite frequently. And I don't like the benefit that I may get from it versus the health negatives. I don't see the overall net positive, frankly. Like, you know, he's used it on there and stuff. I'm like, okay, great. But nowadays, like I feel like I could get a close enough approximation with just like a monument primer these days. Hot tub stream for anniversary? No. No. I don't even have, well, no, we don't have a pool. When it rains, our backyard doesn't even get a puddle in it, thankfully, which is weird because it's kind of like a valley back there. Adam, do you have any experience with oil washes over acrylics? No, I haven't. I do mess with enamel washes, but I have not messed with oil washes. I should think about it probably, but I haven't. At least not a lot. These Horus Heresy models that I'm gonna make 2 small warbands for Grimdark Future Firefight. I am definitely planning on speed painting them up real quick and then using enamel washes on them. That's the plan. So, because honestly, my plan is to do it on the regular guys first and not necessarily on the Praetors or whatever, the big fancy dudes. Because I might, if it turns out that they suck, then I might be like, okay, and then I'll just build, well, I'll either strip them, I'll probably strip them. But yeah, so I want to do it that way. And I've done enamel washes before and I really like the look, but sometimes it doesn't always work. Like, not that it doesn't work the process, but sometimes it doesn't work for those models, in my opinion. So, but yeah, that is my plan, is to make these 2 warbands very grungy. I want them to look very battle worn and stuff like that. So enamel washes work great for that. But I've not tried the oil ones yet. Has Emily gotten to use the finished Gits warband yet? No, not yet. No, hopefully soon. But again, basically pretty much everything is kind of put on hold until after the launch of the new game, unfortunately, just because we're, you know, we are behind to some degree. Like, first of all, like last year we launched Reign in Hell in late May, which was the target we had for this game this year. But then the artist that we wanted to work with, who is awesome, and we are absolutely glad to be able to work with him, he wasn't able to get, he was working for Dark Horse Comics, working on 2 issues of the Critical Role comic book, Vox something or other. Anyway, and that job went a lot longer than he thought, because he was originally going to start working on our artwork in late February. He didn't start working on until late May because of that thing. And we just were like, we'll just wait. It's our business. We can, you know, we hadn't gone out there already and said, this is the date we're going to launch. Hey, you know, we can do what we want. That being said, we would love to get it out before Gen Con. We'll see how it goes. Artwork is kind of taking a bit longer than we thought again. But yeah, so right now I've been layout mode and going through that, and because it's not so much like as soon as the day we get it done, we can go, okay, cool, it's for sale, because we're also doing a print version. So we have to get it all, the print version finished, that PDF, we have to send that off to the company that we work with, Wargame Vault. They send it to the printing company that does the print on demand. And then they run a bunch of checks on the file to make sure everything's cool. And then they print a copy of it and then they mail it to us. And then we have to physically look at it and go through and say yay or nay. And then once we've said yay or nay, then we can now start selling it. But it's basically like they're sending us a proof. So that proof process can take a couple of weeks and it's kind of variable. And so we were trying to work in, anyway, long story short is that next year we're planning on being earlier summer than later summer for launch. And we also want to start earlier and everything. I don't know, the first time we did it, we just did it until it was time to launch. And we were like, well, now's a good time to launch. And we launched. And then this time we sort of didn't pay attention to schedules as easily. And plus we had some, again, the artist, we had to wait a lot longer, and it was a lot of things. So we're going to try to plan way further in advance next year so that it's not so much like all at the end there, you know. When I had my bout with cancer in 93, cannabis was still illegal. My oncologist recommended it, but could not prescribe it at the time, meaning I had to provide my own. Yeah. That is a bummer. I don't know. This is not weed talk over here with Uncle Adam, but I as a person who doesn't particularly use it, I do think it seems like a good idea, specifically, at least medically. AVS, how you doing? Support your local Uncle Adam and your fellow minions, says JP Got Rockets. I appreciate that. Zambies says, can never have enough fezzes. Hey, Zambies, how you doing? Should be like a punch card thing for the fezzes. Like you get a certain numbers and then you get a free sub or something. I don't know. Let's see here. I am way behind. I was yammering on. Hey, what would you use to create an afro for a mini? I took a class at Adepticon 2018 or 19, one of those years. It was in the before times, I know that. And I took a class on how to basically do hairdos on Space Marines. And you use green stuff, that two-part putty that's like yellow and blue, and you squish it together and it turns green, and then it's an epoxy putty or whatever, I think. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I would start watching videos about how to sculpt hair with green stuff. Start watching those, and then you could learn from that. John Ashley Smith says, I enjoy painting flesh. I'm not great at it yet. Reichland Flesh Shade on Zenithal is great. It's not bad. It has a tendency to be very red, though. And like I said, so if you're looking for like sort of like weird looking skin or slightly sickly skin, Reichland Flesh Shade can work great that way. Gilliman Flesh can work pretty well that way, specifically over, yeah, like you said, a Zenithal. But it doesn't look right. I don't know. It's not bad, but it's not right. Orc Painter Nerd? Yeah, I think that was the name. Yep. GW's reformulated washes will be sold in 18 milliliter pots, the same as contrast, as opposed to the current 24 milliliter tallboy pots. That's what I thought from the pictures. Now what will be interesting to see is whether they just keep charging the 24 milliliter price for the 18 milliliter pots. That, again, like I said, wouldn't surprise me. I have a venerable dreadnought that my son and I call Wiggles. I want to give the model an afro, but I haven't figured out what to use for it. I don't know, how do you put hair on a dreadnought? That's a good question. That's a good, yeah. Rain in Space running behind because it's hard to capture enough robot squirrels to get started. Sure, that's exactly it. I got 8 Darkhaven Legends Pewter Wizard minis all scrubbed and cleaned up and straightened, ready to file down some sprues and flashing and get down to a Zenithal primer. Super pumped. Nice. Good old Darkhaven from Reaper. I still have some of those models like still in the blister pack, like on my workbench for some reason. Like I had this idea at one point and I bought some stuff. 10th Fez is free, or at least they give you a tiny one for your cat. Man, they made cat fezzes. There are no cats within line of sight, but I would be making eye contact with them and be like, you're getting a fez. But no, that would be pretty cool. Beaky Space Marines with afros would be fantastic. I mean, the greaves look like bell bottoms, like disco Marines. That'd be pretty cool. Sure, I could see that. Let's see here. Best way I've found for flesh is a mix of red, blue, green, and flesh washes over white, then highlight with a bone color. For like a Caucasian type flesh, you mean? Very small highlights. Green stuff is actually fun to work with. Give yourself plenty of time to experiment and get used to it. There's lots of options for sculpting tools for hair. One of those needle tools at best. Yeah, I can see that. Also, always make sure that your fingers and your tools are wet, because then that way it won't stick as much. Currently got lots of unbuilt and unpainted miniatures and lacking motivation to hobby, but I do have an idea for a Horus Heresy Force. Do you think the box set would be a good motivator? Have the other box sets been good motivators? Kind of real talk, you know what I mean? Like, that's the question, I guess. The issue is, if you've got a whole bunch of models that you haven't painted and built or anything like that, then will more models fix that problem? If it's a problem. Again, you could also just turn around and start selling stuff too. You could, if you're like, I bought these models, throw them on eBay, you can do that. It's a little bit more work, but you could part them out. Maybe make even a little bit of money. Like, if you spent, let's say you bought a box and it was $200. Well, if you part all the pieces, you might be able to get $250. You know what I mean? Like, if you just go, here's the whole box, people are going to want it cheaper than retail. But when you part out this and part out that, it's more work on your part, but you can make some money. Because sometimes people are like, I just need 2 of these guys, not an entire box of these guys, that kind of stuff. You could do that. But it depends. I don't like to tell people, well, you're having a motivation problem but buying more will help. That's actually not necessarily the case. Diesel totally deserves his own fez. I don't think he would like it, but I think he would be awesome for him to have one. Do you collect Shriner fezzes? No, I only have 5 fezzes. Just nothing weird, just 5. But they're all from one company. There's a company called Fezorama, and I used to always pick them up at Gen Con. I would buy a fez generally nearly every year at Gen Con, but then obviously there was 2020, and then 2021 they had Gen Con, but then Fezorama wasn't there. Gen Con 2021 was weird, which makes sense. But allegedly, I think they're going to be at this year's, hopefully, because I do want to buy another fez, you know what I mean? Ends of Q-tips mixed up with a Mod Podge works well for hair, gives you a while to shape it. Oh, I could see that, yeah. How do you feel about using water slide decals? I'm not as good as I would like. One of these days, I'm really going to practice more. Like, I was wondering about shoulder pads, like the one Horus Heresy guy that I painted up for that video. I was going to do Blood Angels. That's why he's red. And then I found out I don't have anything even close to a Blood Angels transfer anywhere that there's probably something somewhere in a drawer or a box someplace. But specifically in the Horus Heresy box, there's only transfers for Imperial Fists and Sons of Horus. So, but yeah, anyway, long story short is, I need to practice because I would like to be able to do it on stuff that's just not straight flat. I've done it plenty on like tanks and things like that, but I've not done it particularly on specifically shoulder pads. And that you got to use microsol, microset, all that kind of shenanigans to make it work right. I thought I read from the Perry brothers that a bunch of Vaseline on the tools is better for green stuff than water. I mean, I've talked to people who use that, or they will use chapstick or something, I think. But then I'm like, don't you have then Vaseline or chapstick stuck all over your green stuff when you're done? And then how do you prime it and paint it? Like, how do you get it off? Do you have to scrub it off with a toothbrush once it's dry? Or what? You know what I mean? I don't know. I use a hand lotion or petroleum jelly instead of water. It lasts longer than water, and you have to reapply a whole lot less. But then doesn't it cause problems for the paint later, or do you wipe it off in some fashion? That's what I'm interested in knowing. I was at a loss deciding what to use for shadow on a violet paint scheme when my daughter suggested blue. Worked brilliant. I love having an artistically inclined child on hand to bounce ideas. Yeah, the cats never give me any good ideas. It's weird. Washing machine fire situation sorted. Well, that's good. I think it's just a stretched belt. It was easier for motor to spin on the belt than spin the drum. Oh, sure. I see what you're saying. Yeah. We had our old washing machine used to, like, washing machines, at least the one we had 3 like shock absorbers on the bottom of it. So the drum is doing spinny thing, and down on the bottom it's got these 3 shock absorbers. So if you put stuff in that's unequal, whatever. And it was an old one, and one of the shock absorbers would get unscrewed or whatever, and then the whole thing would go clunk, and it would make it was a big problem. Well, my wife and I went online and looked up the manual for like how to take it apart or whatever, or something like that, or anyway, we figured out how to like take it apart and then she would get down underneath there, and then I would hold the thing, and then she would screw it back in, and then we would put it all back together again, and then it would work for about a month, and then it would do it again, and then we would, and so we just kept doing it, and the amount of time that it would work for before it crapped out was getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So we did eventually replace it, but for a good year and a half, almost 2 years, we would just spend half an hour every month just having to, basically take it apart and put it back together again a little bit, just to have to get the front off of it. I wish you could run without the front on it, but there was actually a sensor that wouldn't allow it to happen. So anyway, it would have been really loud too. And plus cats would have gotten in there. Anyway, long story short is, you may think that you can't, like, you've got a problem with a machine like that, specifically like washers and dryers, not so much a, like, dishwasher, because they're like usually, well, depends. Usually they're sunk into the cabinetry, right? So they're kind of hard to get at and stuff. But there's certain things you can do. Whenever you're like, oh, geez, this isn't working, just go look on YouTube. You're going to find someone who's able to give you a tip on how to fix it. I fixed my parents' shower. I'm not a plumber. I got no idea. That's why we do this stuff. Maybe you're like, hey, I need to fix my shower. You go on YouTube. Someone else is like, hey, I need to paint a power weapon. Boom, you go on YouTube. That's how it works. Wouldn't it be awesome if GW randomized the transfer sheets instead of the box set, inside the box set? Oh, yeah, maybe. I don't know. They wouldn't be able to sell $35 transfer sheets then. Yeah, no, that would be terrible. Yeah, in case you're wondering, if you've gone and looked at the website, they're selling $35 transfer sheets. I mean, they're big transfer sheets, sure, but anyway. I learned the way of the water slide decal with the postage stamp sized decal sheets that used to come in the heavy gear model blisters. Had to use thinned white glue as releasing the designs. When I've done transfers, step one for me is always put down a gloss coat where I want the transfer to go. Step one, wait for that to dry. Then once you're done with that, then I cut the transfer and just get it a little wet. Like, I don't even put it like into, some people put it like in a little flat dish of water or something like that. I just put like a sponge kind of on it and just sort of dab it a little bit and give it some time. And then then you use a wet paintbrush, wet clean paintbrush to slide, and so you can slide it off of the backing, and then you slide it onto where you want. And then, you try to get as much moisture out from underneath it as possible, because you want that plastic to sit as close as possible onto the gloss. The reason you gloss first is because if you don't gloss, very frequently when everything is dried out, your transfer will look like it has a cloudy haze behind it. And what that is, a matte finish on a miniature, if you look at it microscopically, like it's from a side view, it's actually bumpy. It's bumpy, bumpy, bumpy. And that's when the light comes down to hit it, it bounces off and refracts in a bunch of different angles and doesn't reflect straight back. So that's why when something bounces straight back, it looks glossy. When it bounces and refracts, it looks matte, right? That's how that works. Well, if you lay a piece of, plastic, a decal over the top of a very, very bumpy microscopic surface, when there's water in there, it all looks perfect and it looks great, and you're like, awesome. But as soon as that water finally all evaporates, you now have a bunch of air pockets underneath your plastic, and it just doesn't, that's why you get that cloud. So that's why you always want to put down a nice gloss finish and let it dry before you put your decal on there, because then when the water evaporates, the decal's actually stuck to the gloss surface because it's flat and it's not microscopically bumpy, which is what matte varnish does, or any kind of matte surface. We used to work for a camera store in the early 90s, and people would bring in film, and you would ask them whether they wanted matte or glossy. And if you looked at it with a little loop, one of those little things for looking at negatives and stuff like that, little plastic thing, if you looked at a matte varnish or a matte print versus a glossy print, glossy prints were flat and smooth and reflective, and matte ones were like, if you looked at them really close, you could see like little bumps, and that's what refracts the light. When you have these days, sometimes you get laptops that are super shiny. Well, the darks are dark because but then you get glare, and when you have a matte finish like screen, you don't get glare as much, but the blacks are never as black because the light in the room is coming down and hitting that thing and then kind of refracting off and bouncing, or the light coming through. It's a whole thing. So anyway, long story short is that the first step to a good decal is actually laying down varnish, gloss varnish where you want it to go. And then later on, you're going to go back and matte varnish over the whole thing anyway, probably, or whatever. So it's not that big of a deal. But that's always the biggest thing. Water slide decals were horrible until I found Microsol. Now they look painted on, even on shoulder pads. Even gets into the panel lines. Yeah, Microsol. Sol is short for solvent, and Microsol is another big trick, but it's not the first trick. First trick is laying down some sort of gloss varnish, which I think Microset is kind of a gloss varnish, really. But you lay down some sort of gloss varnish, and then you put the thing down there, and then the important thing is to throw, if you can, you throw some Microsol over the top of it, because it will like literally dissolve the plastic, but not the ink or whatever, really. And it will make it so that you don't see the edges of the decal. It'll kind of just blend that out. It works really quite nice. Also, if you're trying to put it onto something that's a rounded surface, like a shoulder pad on a Space Marine or whatever, it'll also help a lot with that too. I learned to install stud ceilings from YouTube. That's now the only level surface in my house. Yeah, our house is the same. I used to never have a lick of trouble with my washing machine. Then she retired and moved to Florida. Whoa. Hey, I need a game to use my row with squirrels in. There you go. You mean $55 dues? Is that like didgeridoos, but like in Australian? I get you. Gloss coat, wet the transfer, Microsol to get it on the surface, Microsets to fix it in place, gloss with gloss coat to lock it in, then matte finish. Basically, yeah. I've never had great, I don't know, the Microset's never done much for me, but I guess I can understand that. Is Microset and then gloss coat on top of that like redundant almost? But I could be wrong. It's called silvering in the plastic modeling community. Use micro industry set and sol products to help decals snug down into the yeah, it looks frosted, or yeah, silvering. Yeah, exactly. And that is because it's on you put a decal on a matte surface and it looked great when there was water underneath it, and then when the water eventually completely evaporated, then it didn't look great anymore. Also known as the bumpy bubbles, according to Bubba Doom. I get that, yeah. Uncle Adam, any new rumors regarding the possibility of a new Warcry edition soon? There hasn't been any new Warcry news on the Warcom, whatever, Warhammer community site. I haven't seen any new has there been anything? To be fair, I haven't checked today, so who's to say? Usually what happens is that when I go, I haven't, and then it's that day. But I haven't seen anything recently, so yeah. But no, I'm still assuming probably this summer. Again, that's my assumption. Like, we know something's coming. I'm not just completely pulling this out of thin air, because we do know something's coming. They've told us. They've shown us a new logo. They've shown us the guys with the hats on top of their hats. They showed us that awesome centaur with all the extra arms and stuff, like Spider Centaur's name is. That's what I'm calling him. But they haven't. Yeah, we don't know any dates or anything like that. Much prefer the matte screen on my Razer laptop. Gloss screens are pain in the ass at day festivals if the sun is in the wrong spot. Yeah, and that's why there's options. So yeah, I don't disagree. I think that, like, and I'm still not 100% sure I'm going to pull the trigger. But I put $5 down on a Steam Deck, which is made by Valve, the people who make the video games, Steam, and it's a handheld, like, PC thing. I might finally be able to order it sometime this fall. I'm not sure. Global supply chain. Long story short, though, is that one of the versions has a matte screen instead of a shiny screen, and I think I kind of want that. Or else I'm thinking of some sort of Apple product. Maybe I'm thinking of that new Apple monitors, which I'm not going to buy because they're $1,500. That's crazy. I don't know, but there's something coming up soon where I'm like, you get the actual option between matte and shiny. I think maybe it's both. Maybe it's both of those things. Anyway. Vaseline and petroleum jelly can be cleaned up with isopropyl alcohol. See, now that would be nice to know. That's good. I'll try that out. I'd like some advice, please. I've been playing Age of Sigmar and sometimes 40k for nearly 5 years. I'm a very weak player. I'm okay with that. My jam is mostly painting and conversions, but I am worried that the guys in my gaming club don't play me because I can't give them a good game. What would you advise? I would say to either, I mean, the easy answer is we'll find a better class of people. Not better classes, sounds mean. Find a different class of people to play with. People who want to play the way you want to play. People who are more interested in casual play. That's what I'm interested in, is in casual play. It is very difficult if your gaming club is all about tournaments and prepping for tournaments and all that kind of stuff, and you're not interested in those things at all, or even if you kind of are, but you're just like, I just don't, you don't have the time to put to it, or you just don't have the mind for it. I don't have a mind for deep strategy. I just don't, It's one of the great reasons that Vince and I work together quite well, is because I'm the artsy fartsy one and he's the one that's great at strategy and design for the game and all that kind of stuff. And so then I'm art direction and layout and all that jazz. And we work together on the creative stuff, and it's fun. But when you're playing games with folks, if you have differing requirements for the outcome, they're trying to practice for their next tournament, so they're looking for someone, and you're just like, I want to play games because games should be fun. Both of those are valid, but yeah, it's difficult to do that. So the easy answer is try to find some different folks to play with. Another answer is to see if they're interested in playing a different game. Maybe play something like... Now, again, they are going to, obviously, if they're playing for tournaments, they're going to be trying to practice. But every once in a while, they might want to try something different. Just some. And you might want to find something model agnostic, so they could use the same miniatures that they already have. If you're talking about 40K, they've got some space sci-fi type miniatures. You could play Space Weirdos, Planet 28. If they're interested in Age of Sigmar, you could easily play with some of those models, and you don't even need that many. It's like 5. You could play something like Forbidden Psalm, which those games are more about story and it's not about tournament crushing and winning and that kind of stuff. But it's, yeah, I know, it is tough. It's a tough one. If someone made a miniature agnostic space skirmish game that would allow using X-Wing models, would that just be uselessly reinventing X-Wing? I mean, I guess it depends on whether you like the X-Wing rules. Like if you have an idea for a space combat game that you think would be really cool, but you don't want to make space combat models because it's a pain in the butt, you just want them to be able to use X-Wing stuff. I mean, I'll be honest, I've got a bunch of X-Wing stuff that I barely use anymore. I only ever still play version 1 of X-Wing, and I only play it with my friend Eric, and we haven't done that in a long while. Neither of us decided to upgrade to version 2.0 or whatever version they're on now. So saying, like, here's basically almost making like a one-page rules kind of thing where I've made this rule set, and here's a bunch of army lists. These are not really Tau, wink, wink, and these are not really Space Marines, wink, wink, that kind of stuff. Being able to do that and make up stats for ships that are available, it might be something small and indie that you could do that people would dig. You know what I mean? Now, if you just designed a game that was identical to X-Wing, well, then, yeah, that wouldn't make any sense. But there's very easily things you could do in that genre that would be maybe different than X-Wing or more interesting to you or to other people. There's lots of reasons why someone maybe doesn't like X-Wing. But there's nothing wrong with going down that road and creating something. And again, if you decide to create it and publish it and put it out there, as long as you're not using Disney's IP with the Star Wars stuff or blah, 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 all that jazz, so you don't get in trouble. Going into the world of self-publishing and putting that stuff up, even just as a straight PDF, like I was talking before, because our book is either available in print or PDF, or print and PDF, depending on how you do it. The print part's what takes a long time. Specifically, once we get it all set up and send it off, then it has to be proofed and go through all that. But if we were just producing a PDF, we could literally put it up and turn it on for sale in the next you upload it, you could turn it on for sale in, like, I don't even know if they go look at it. Maybe they do, but you can turn it on pretty quickly. It's the print thing that's different. So being able to sit down and say, I'm going to design a game and sell it as a PDF, go right ahead. I mean, even if people are like, well, I don't know. But it's a thing that will teach you about maybe for your next product, and then your next product or your next project or whatever. Like the concept that you have to wait until you get the best idea possible. Like, you see that in bands, and sometimes it happens. I've come across, there's plenty of bands out there where their first album is their best album. Lord knows. But it's also, they've been practicing. It's very different. When you make your first game, let's say, it's not like the culmination of you making, of your game design happening over the last 10 years. If you are a musician, you've been playing music, practicing music, playing in bands, out at shows, at bars or whatever, and you've been doing that for a long time. And then you come together and you make this band, and you have all these awesome ideas, and you use it all up on the first album, and you make this amazing first album, and then every album after that sometimes is not as good, and it's because you used all the good ideas the first time. That's not how game design works. You design a game, your first game will probably be like, meh, and then your second game hopefully will be better because you learn stuff from it, and your third game will be even potentially better because you learn stuff from the first two, and that kind of thing. So it's a different kind of setup. I don't know. I'm not sure if that makes any sense. Let's see here. I built a very fluffy list. The Crusade rules allow me to combine these two broken things. Very lore compliant. Some 40k player in my club. Yeah. Wasn't able to get to TMX for reasons. What did I miss? It was small. We had a good time. TMX was fun. It was about 40 people. Let's see. There were several different games. Actually, talking about game designers, there was a game called Country Road Z that was being demoed there, which is done by a relatively local game designer. There was another game called Bound in Blood, which is in beta, I think. I don't think is ready for sale yet. That Country Road Z you can get on Wargame Vault, I'm pretty sure. Country Road Z. It's like a rural zombie miniature game thing. Let's see, there was a big game called Mech Attack, which I don't think is for sale, but it was a big, like, it was 3 tables put together, and the mechs were all like about a foot tall almost, like 3D printed stuff. It was kind of cool. There was some Necromunda, there was some Car Wars, there was some Gaslands, there was some Warcry. What else? There was other stuff as well. I can't think of all of it off the top of my head, but it was a small convention, smaller than 2019. It's what we like to call a rebuilding year. And yeah, so we're looking forward to next year. And we'll see how that goes. Working on my first Forge World model, and the mold lines are going to literally make me cry. Yeah. And wait till you find out how warped things can be, too. Should I expect these mold lines issues with their models, or did I just get unlucky? Forge World's not... Around my group of friends, we refer to Forge World as for advanced modelers, meaning people who, like, it's hard to put that crap together. Forge World, and like the little tiny stuff like shoulder pads and stuff like that, it's fine, generally fine. It's the bigger vehicles and the bigger things, specifically vehicles. I got a good friend who was trying to put together a Fire Raptor, and he sent me a photo of him just trying to get the nose to finally glue together. There's like these 2 little guns in the bottom, like, well, they're big guns, but you know, they're like Gatling guns or Vulcans, but not as long, and right on the front, and then the nose comes to a point, and there's a canopy and all this jazz and whatever. And he had like a dozen of those little bar clamps. You ever seen those? You see them in woodworking and stuff like that. It's like a long bar, and there's a thing here and a thing here and a little trigger, and you're closing it, right? And you can get little ones that are about a foot long. He had a dozen of those just clamping from every angle, trying to keep this nose together while he was trying to glue it, because it was really warped bad. Yeah. I won't use Forge World stuff for anything. I mean, not like there's a huge chance of it anymore because I'm not playing as much Games Workshop stuff as I used to, but the normal, like the vehicles, like the new tanks that they're putting out for Horus Heresy that are finally in plastic, every person I've talked to is like, Oh my God, it's so much easier. It is so much easier than trying to build the original, resin one, which I totally understand. Big resin is just hard. It's not really meant for that. Like resin dudes this tall, not a problem. Anvil Industry makes awesome resin guys about this big and they're spectacular. But a resin tank, unless it's one giant chunk of resin, but they never send it that way. It's always walls and this and that and the roof and all that jazz. And everything is just slightly twisted and tilted and warped. And then there's a lot of, it's for advanced modelers. That's what that stuff is. And I don't want to be that advanced. Not putting anyone else down, but I'm just thankful for your very seldom use of profanity. I can have TM loud on TV while with my wife raising an eyebrow. Well, here's the deal. I, in the real world, swear quite a bit, like many adults do. That being said, I know over the years, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people who are like, I watched your show, my kids watch with me. We're sitting there in the hobby room, you're playing on the laptop, and I'm painting my miniatures, and they're over here doing their thing or whatever, playing with Legos or painting their own miniatures or whatever. So I know there's a lot of folks who are watching with their kids, and so I just I figure it's a good idea to not go down that road if I can. Every once in a great while I slip a little bit, but for the most part, generally I try not to with this. But yeah, like I said, if you meet me in person, I swear a normal amount, I suspect. Not sure what this Lucy shenanigans is, so we'll just do that. And do that. The bot uprising does seem to have begun. You're not wrong. Like, it makes sense sometimes when I have a lot of people here, but I don't have that many people here. I mean, it's a decent number, but I've had bigger. I should drag my housemates into some OPR stuff. I think so. It makes me sort of sad how competitive play has become held as sort of a holy grail of 40K gameplay. I find it boring, and I'm glad my friends who enjoy both playstyles. Yeah, no, that's the thing. I mean, there's plenty of folks out there who are like, I absolutely love competitive play, and that's the thing. And I'm very glad that they have the outlet to do that. You see stuff like small store tournaments all the way up to stuff like LVO. Like Las Vegas Open, though again, not the largest of the wargaming conventions, it is the largest 40K tournament in the world. I'm 98% sure. Like, I think it was 2019, it was either 2019 or 2021, there were 840 people in that tournament or something like that, which means that, take that number, cut it in half, that's how many tables they had available. That's astounding. Like, where do you put all that stuff? You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy. So, yeah, it is, I'm glad that those folks have got that outlet for that kind of stuff, and it's cool that it's part of the hobby. My concern is that too many people coming into the hobby, they think that is the hobby, and then that's because it's the first thing they see, because there's so much talked about the competitive play, and so yeah, it's kind of weird. Anyway. Just want to say I'm a really big fan of your channel and help myself and my best friend of mine to start off our journey in 40K with your videos and the money management side of it. Well, good to hear that. I'm glad to, thank you very much, Fernando. I appreciate that. Let's see here. I like the maneuver templates from X-Wing, but I prefer the Star Trek attack wing implementation. I never played that, but I watched some guys play it one time at a small convention. And it was interesting because I was asking questions. I asked if it was okay to ask questions. It's good if you're watching people playing a game at a convention, if you can be like, is this like a tournament, or can I ask a couple of questions? You don't just be like, hey, so explain this entire game to me, because they're playing the game and they don't have time necessarily. So, you know what I mean? So I was like, hey, I got some questions. Is that cool or no? And they're like, oh yeah, because they wanted to, teach people about the game. And it's very interesting because in like X-Wing, you've got like, okay, these pilots can only go on these types of ships. This guy's just an X-Wing pilot. This guy's just a TIE fighter pilot. This guy's just an A-Wing pilot, whatever, that kind of stuff. And in the Star Trek game, it looked like Captain Picard is on a D7 class Klingon ship, you know, for reasons. Why not? I don't know. And that's kind of interesting, but, you know. But I never did play it, though. It sucks so much of fun out of the game to be focused only on winning and not creating epic moments in the tabletop. I agree, but I know that there are folks out there that are like, but I'm only really interested in just winning. And that's fine, I guess. It's not for me, though. And I think it's not for a lot of people, honestly. Like I said, I think there's a lot of talk about competitive, specifically tournament play and stuff like that. And I think that that is actually not a huge portion of the actual amount of people who play. I get that. I get that feeling. Game design is easy until you start playtesting. Ask me how I know. I know what you mean. Yeah. Wings of War looks like a good group game. I wish I'd seen it potential back in the day. It was easily obtainable. Haven't seen it anywhere. Now it's called Wings of Glory. They changed the name, so that might be something to look for instead of Wings of War. Wings of Glory is the name that they call it now. And there's also a game called Sails of Glory, maybe, which is if you're into boats. Uncle Adam, when it comes to hobby and gaming, how did it all start for you? My babysitter taught me to play Dungeons and Dragons when I was in the 5th grade, I think. Because he was, I don't know, 5 years older, 4 years older, and his mom and my mom were like best friends, and so he would come over to watch me and my younger brother when they would go do things and whatever and stuff like that. And so he kind of taught me Dungeons and Dragons. Plus, our family and their family would go to these cottages up north a little bit, and then we would be there for a week, and then, you know, he and I would play a lot of D&D at that time and stuff. So I got into D&D then in like 5th grade. And then in middle school, another guy and I started playing Battletech back when it was just the little cardboard standees. Like there were no miniatures and stuff like that. And then I didn't really do much in the way of tabletop gaming for quite a while until I got to college. And then that's when my good friend Peter showed me 1st edition Space Hulk. And then we played Space Hulk, and I learned about the 40K universe and all that jazz, and the Tyranids and the Terminators and all that jazz. And it was pretty cool. But then I still got into video games pretty hard there through most of the 90s into the early 2000s. I used to run a LAN party, me and a friend. The first LAN party that we ran was in 1998, and we had 5 people there. And then sometime in 2002 or 2003, I think we topped out with our LAN party, and we had 98 people at that LAN party that I remember we almost hit 100, but didn't quite. So we were doing it like once a quarter or once every 2 months, depending. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. But then in the mid 2000s, early 2000s, I started painting again a little bit here and there. And then, well, yeah, that was my first painting, actually, was in early 2000s. Maybe late 90s, but I think it was early 2000s. But I didn't really start getting into gaming, like miniature gaming, until at some point in 5th edition. That's when I built a Tau army, well, a small Tau army, combat patrol. Back in the day, combat patrol was only 400 points instead of 500 points. And there were some other limitations and stuff like that. And I would actually even play in little small tournaments at a local shop once in a while. But otherwise, we'd play on Sunday afternoons over at actually at Sam's older brother's house. Sam Lenz's older brother's house, his brother John. We used to play in his garage and stuff like that. So yeah, that was late 2000s, early 2010, late 2000s, whatever 5th edition was. That's when I first started playing 40K, was 5th edition. But I played other stuff as well, so there you go. Live painting advice. Never prime white unless you really want to and know what you're doing. I'm painting a figure. I primed white right now, and I'm experiencing huge regret. Yeah. I only ever paint white. I only ever prime white if I need to test, like, contrast colors or speed paints or something like that. Or if I'm doing stormtroopers, totally makes sense for stormtroopers. Or any other kind of white, completely, like if you were doing white scars, I would start with a base of white primer, and then go from there. But for the most part, generally, no. I always do some sort of zenithal. I always, go with either starting with a base of black and then spraying white over the top of it, or a dark base with some other light color base over it, depending on if I'm trying to, if I'm working on Blood Angels, I would not use black to white. I would use black to red, or even super, super dark brown to red, or something like that. Can't wait for TMX next year. Nice. Do you know anything about Dragonfall Charity Gaming Festival up in your neck of the woods? Yeah, I'm going to be attending, I'm pretty sure. It's taking place in October. I forget the exact date, but you can look it up. Just do a search for Dragonfall Convention. It's in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. It is, last year was probably about 250 people. In the past, in the before times, they were up in the 400s. And it's predominantly mostly miniatures. This year they are raising money for Extra Life, Doctors Without Borders, and I think the American Cancer Society, or something like that. But yeah, so it's a charity. There's like auctions, or not auctions, like a raffle, like where you buy a bunch of tickets and then you put them in a thing, and then they'll draw a thing, and then you might win that thing and that kind of stuff. But you can buy more and more tickets, and then all goes to charity and stuff. So yeah, Dragonfall is coming up soon. Tickets have gone on sale as of about a week ago. Oh, good. The motorcycle. Yeah, so that's definitely, check that out if you're kind of in that neck of the woods. And it's at a gorgeous resort. It's the Lake Geneva Resort, and it's a lovely place. I bought Country Road Z on Wargame Vault. Looks super fun, post-apocalyptic in the vein of 5 Parsecs and Leagues. Yeah, it's like a zombie post-apocalyptic thing. I've decided to add dropping into Warlord games to my Nottingham to-do list in between my studio tour of Mantic and Warhammer World. Nice. Absolutely, you should do that. Going to be interesting since I've gotten into Conflict 47. Totally makes sense, sure. Let's see here. As much as Forge World models cost, you think they'd be better? I think it's just a situation of just the material. You know what I mean? It's just the material. It's just a kind of a weird stuff. Let's see here. You think they would fit together? Yes. Give a try to Silent Death. Oh yeah, Silent Death was also at TMX this year. That's right. What used to pay for Forge World is broken rules. Yeah, and I have never played any Forge World units either, so I don't know much about the rules. Do you think the Games Workshop will ever invite you to attend one of their big events at Warhammer World like they did with Horus Heresy recently? Maybe. I don't know. I have a passport now, so that's something. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like, they will send me stuff, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about like what you need to go through to get involved with that kind of stuff. I will be honest, I was kind of surprised by some of the folks that were invited to the Horus Heresy thing, because I'm like, but I think it comes from a place of them going, if they just invited people, like channels that were just super about Horus Heresy, then those people are going to go back and say, hey, new Horus Heresy stuff, but they're already preaching to the choir. They want to spread out their, to get people who have channels that don't necessarily just focus on Horus Heresy, so they want to spread that around a little bit. I think that could be part of it. Let's see here. Hey, Adam, love your show. Ever tried out Dead Zone by Mantic? It is a pretty tight little skirmish game. I own a copy of the rules. Well, okay, so I bought Dead Zone 1, built terrain, painted Enforcers and Plague. We were going to play it at Adepticon one year, I don't know, 2015, 2016. The rules were confusing, and we had had too much to drink, and so we didn't play it. Then, second edition came out, and I got the second edition rules, and then never really got a chance to read them properly, and then third edition came out. And I own the third edition rules now. I purchased those, and it hasn't been on my radar. I don't know. I know a lot of people in the chat are always talking about Dead Zone. I don't I really like the folks from Mantic, and I've heard that these rules are better laid out and stuff like that, but that's been a problem with the previous 2 editions, in my opinion. And also, there's still just not any miniatures in that kind of line that really speak to me. What did I buy from them recently? I bought the spaceship. There's some sort of spaceship for Warpath that I bought just because I wanted to build it, because I'm going to use it as a terrain piece. I'm going to have it like cocked to the side, like they're trying to work on it. There's going to be a bunch of little crates and stuff around it, and it's just going to be a cool piece of terrain. But I don't know, because I own Enforcers, Plague, some Forge Father stuff, some Rebs. I own a bunch of different models, and I'm just like, I don't know what it is. There's just not something there, and I can't quite figure it out. So, right now, I think for my skirmish stuff, I'm currently focusing on, I think the other thing too is that, and I don't know if this has changed in 3rd edition because I haven't been able to read the rules. 3rd edition, or at least Dead Zone in general, kind of requires that you have a board that has those squares on it. Because instead of having to use a tape measure, you just count squares. Now, you can land anywhere in the square, and that's cool. But if you don't have a board that has that on it, then you kind of, I don't know, is there a way to go around that? They tell you just use a tape measure instead? I'm frequently loath to play games that don't just use a tape measure. You know what I mean? Like, well, what if we have a special ruler that has a bunch of shapes on it? No, I'm not super interested in that. Like, it makes sense kind of with X-Wing. But for a normal miniature game where it's infantry running around the ground, use a tape measure. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's personal preference. That's what I like. But yeah, no, one of these days I do need to sit down when I have some free time and read through that book, but I've not as of yet done it today. But I've owned all of them. I've owned 1st edition, 2nd edition, and 3rd edition. And yeah, hasn't happened. I'm a truck driver and I have the vocabulary of one. Your language is one of the first things I noticed about your channel. I appreciate it. Well, I appreciate that as well. Again, like I said, it's not my normal day-to-day, but I do it because I know that I can't tell you, geez, how many times there's been probably more than a dozen times that I've been at a convention or something, and someone comes up and is saying, hey, I really like the channel and that kind of stuff, which is always lovely. And I've had people be like, and they've got their phone out and they're like, I'm FaceTiming with my son, daughter, whatever. Could you say hi to them? You know, I made a kid cry one time because she was pretty young and she and daddy watch Uncle Adam on YouTube very frequently on the phone, and now here she is watching daddy and Uncle Adam on the phone, and she doesn't understand how daddy got in the phone, or I don't know exactly what happened, but I don't understand little kids, but she did cry. Was that Adepticon or Gen Con? It was one of the conventions. So yeah, I know that people are out there with kids watching, and so I try to be cognizant of that. Hey, Corvus Games, how you doing? Joseph. Maybe this is an old topic. The Horus Heresy box Space Marines all have the same helmets. Why not distinguish them if they're selling the helmet variants on the site? That's the reason. That's because they're selling the variants on the site. That's generally the case. Like, why does the box not have any plasma guns or any of that stuff in it? Why did I have to? Why did I have to buy a $42 box of plasma guns and gravity guns and a bunch of other types of guns and whatnot? Why didn't any of those come in the box set? You know, because then $42. So yeah, that's kind of the answer there. Oh, Eons of Battle. I didn't see the question about the Dead Zone. I didn't see the name. Sorry. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Let's see here. If he hasn't read the rules by TMX next year, I'll be teaching it there and dragging him into a game. Well, that'll be good. Good to hear it. Greetings from Delaware. Your channel and Brent, Goobertown Hobbies, yep, are my favorites to listen to when hobbying with the kiddo. Nice. Yep, Brent's a good guy. When was the last time I talked to him? April or May, I think. Something like that. I mean, last time I saw him in person was Adepticon. Previous to that was in Reno. We had dinner in Reno twice with different people and stuff like that. Gaddis Games was at one of those too. And also Casey from eBay Miniature Rescue and Game Format. And yeah, it was a great time. Is it 90 degrees in the Midwest over here? Hot? No, actually, today's lovely. Today it's going to barely get, what's it right now? Currently it's 70, and it's supposed to only get to 72 or 74, and it's low humidity. It was not like that this week. It was pretty hot and humid a good portion of this week, except for yesterday where it rained, but not a lot. Yeah, so there you go. You were mentioning shipping for Rain in Hell. Yeah, I'm waiting till I move to order it because I don't want to miss it in case it takes the full 6 weeks. Yeah, that's totally understandable. The benefit is that with our games, we've had people in the past ask us, they're like, well, I'm concerned about like ordering it. Like I want to get it, but I'm concerned that like, again, moving or something like that, will you guys, like, how long are you going to have it? Do you know how many there are? And well, I was going to say infinite, but that's technically not true. But close enough to be true. It's print on demand. So when someone says, hey, I want that thing, then they will print one and send it to them. So it's not like there's a pile of them sitting someplace in a warehouse, and when they're out, and we have to get more printed. Being print on demand means, and this is a benefit, I think, honestly, is that being print on demand means that the game will never be dead because it'll always be for sale. Unless eventually someday me and Vince become, I don't know, hermits and decide to turn it off for some reason or something like that. But it'll always be something you can get. And I really like that. I wish more companies would do that. It's funny because you are seeing some of the bigger companies, not within our realm, but within like the role-playing people. Like they're like Wizards of the Coast is like, if you want to buy this book from 20 years ago that we just recently found the digital files for, we will put it up on Drive-Thru RPG so you can do that. We're not gonna make it so you can print it, or you can print it yourself at home, but we're not gonna have a print version of it because that becomes difficult for probably a lot of different reasons. But they're like, if you want to buy a PDF of some old stuff that we would definitely take that money. And it's in miniatures, it's not done that way for some reason. I don't know. So I would like to see companies like, I don't know why, like I don't know. I think partially it's because things change so quickly with Games Workshop that if you're like, boy, I sure wish I had the 4th edition Black Templar Codex, there's somebody on eBay who's trying to get rid of it for sure. But eventually those will run out. And the fact that you won't be able to go and just buy a PDF of it because you really love this information about it, or you and your friends only play 4th edition or 3rd edition or whatever, like that seems like money left on the table. But, obviously, specifically with Games Workshop, it's all about, no, you got to buy the newest one, and then the newest one after that, and then the newest one after that. And so it's kind of different that way. I legit feel bad whenever I start wiping out my friends' units and winning in games. We're super casual but competitive with each other. It's a tricky mix. It's true. Yeah, I can understand that. Let's see here. Sales of Glory now too? I think it's called Sales of Glory. Sounds like Adam was basically one of the kids in Stranger Things. Yeah, maybe. A little bit. I spent a year making a D&D style game where you used a deck of cards that represent your class abilities. My friends really enjoyed it, but I didn't know where I would take it from there. Technically, Drive-Thru RPG also has a sister site called Drive-Thru Cards, and they do print-on-demand cards. And they also sell card PDFs if you want to go down that road too. But yeah, you can also buy print-on-demand cards. And I've purchased some just to try them out and see what they're like, and the quality's quite nice, actually. So there's something to look at as well. What's a LAN party? Oh, I'm really far behind. A LAN party, LAN stands for Local Area Network. And it is, back in the day before everybody had broadband, if you wanted to play like really fast internet kind of type games, it wasn't internet, it was like, well, it was internet it was just you there in the basement or whatever. And so everybody would, their computers would all get plugged into some network switches, and then you would have a server, and then it wasn't going out to the internet. It was just, you guys would all bring your computers to one spot and play against each other, as opposed to, because you were frequently on dial-up or on crappy like DSL or something like that. We stopped in 2004 because all of a sudden, eventually everybody had like cable internet, and then it wasn't as big of a deal. But it was a nice social fun thing to do. Honestly, a lot of people dialed back on the LAN parties just when everybody started getting flat screen TV or monitors. which doesn't make any sense because everybody used to hump these like 17 and 21 inch sometimes if you were like a rich person, giant honking super crazy heavy monitors in to play video games. And nowadays it's just like, oh yeah, I got a gaming laptop. I mean, or even if you don't, you bring a small tower like a mini ATX or something like that and a nice flat screen, and it's way less stuff to hump around. But yeah. As someone who loves making terrain, I find competitive 40K really boring with their insistence on having FPS arena-style symmetrical layouts. It's boring and not visually pleasing. I agree. I don't like that. I understand that as a competitive thing, you want everything to be equal, but I don't care. That's why I don't like to. That's why I don't play competitive. Is your younger brother into tabletop wargaming too? If so, how about a guest appearance? No, he's not. He's into. Well, these days, I mean, he's not that much. Well, he's younger. He's like 4 years younger than me, which means he's like 46. He does play Minecraft. He enjoys Minecraft. He plays with some friends. They have a server, and he does that. But otherwise, he's not. And he plays some sports video games, hockey mostly. He and friends of his from high school who now live all over the place. They get together on, was it the Nintendo? I think we're playing like some sort of Nintendo hockey. I don't know, Wii Sports? No, not Wii Sports. I don't know. I think it was on a Wii. They used to play and have tournaments, and then they would basically just be on their phones because they didn't have Discord back then or whatever, and they would just be like talking trash to each other and playing, hockey. I think it was on the Nintendo Wii. I don't know if he has a Switch or not. I don't know. Anyway, otherwise he's into skateboarding too, and hockey. Let's see. A LAN party is a room full of computers directly connected to each other. Yep. We used to create games for create rules for our airfix tanks and soldiers with measuring and dice rolls, lots of arguments. Then we discovered Strike Team Alpha in '78, and then onto D&D in '79. There you go. Oh, dear. Everything just moved. Brent's Paint Bravely podcast is second only to Game 4 podcast in the area of life. Well, there you go. That's nice to hear. I appreciate that. Love your channel. What advice would you give someone wanting to get into the retail side of hobby wargaming? Like designing games or selling games like as a game store? Yeah, the game store thing's hard. That's a ton of work. I've never done that. I don't know how to. I mean, well, I have ideas, but I don't know that retail's hard because basically you're just going to have to sell just basically Games Workshop stuff. You can sell other stuff too, but you've got, it's like if you're a game store and you don't sell Magic, people be like, how are you staying open? That's kind of, Is Brent's personality similar to his video persona? Really like the dude, just sometimes he reminds me of an elementary teacher. I mean, he's a super nice guy. He talks differently. Like he has a definite, when he does his videos, he has a cadence to the way he speaks. And when you talk to him just like normally, that's not how he talks exactly. You know what I mean? At least I don't think so. It doesn't seem like it to me. It seems very like the way he speaks in his videos versus the way he just speaks when you're just talking to him on Discord or talking to him, like I said, at dinner or something like that at the Gamma trade show thing that we were at in Reno back in March. Then yeah, he talks differently. So that I don't want to say it's a character. It's not, but you get people who have a certain way of speaking and they do it a specific way in their videos. And then if you just talk to them like in a normal situation, they talk differently. So yeah, but it seems to be the case, at least in my opinion. That's the way it works. Do you use a vortex mixer? And have you seen Green Stuff's new paint shaker? I don't use a vortex mixer. I use a Typhoon mixer, which I bought on eBay, and it is very, very heavy. It was expensive, and I probably should have bought a vortex mixer. It's very powerful. But I can't put it on a table because if I do and then put the paint, it will shake everything. It's very, very powerful. I have to keep it on the floor in the basement because otherwise, if I bring it upstairs and set it on the floor here and turn it on, at least two of the cats will run because they'll be afraid of the noise. It's weird, but it's called a Typhoon mixer. You can find them on eBay, and they are expensive and heavy, very heavy, made out of steel. Maybe lead. No, not lead. Iron? I don't know. They're really heavy. Why does technology these days all feel like it's all in open beta? I think it mostly is, for the most part. I think, yeah. 3D printing is a hobby in and of itself. That's is true. Sure, it can print cool parts, but when it comes time to save your printer from an FEP hole that spilled resin all over, yeah, no, yeah. There was an idea in Yu-Gi-Oh community that one YouTuber called business casual gaming, where you use non-competitive options to the highest competitive level possible. I use this in 40K. Interesting. I thought you meant you had to wear khakis. I appreciate the clean language as well. After 25-year career as a theater stagehand, now that I'm in an extreme corporate job, it is very shocking when the F-bomb gets dropped in a Zoom meeting. Yeah, I can understand that. Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, folks, it is 11 o'clock in my neck of the woods. So I want to thank everybody for coming by. I'll be keeping you folks informed now that I've got a hole drilled in the house, and I've got I would show you a picture of the dryer vent that I also put into so that, like I said, squirrels don't get in and whatnot, but I don't have my phone anywhere. I think it must be in the bedroom. But yeah, so after the new game that Vince and I are working on gets published, I will have more free time, and I will be probably able to get things set up with the printing. So I'm looking forward to getting that moving, because I've got a lot of things I want to print. So, but the ventilation thing was a big deal for me, and I wanted to make sure that I could vent stuff out. So now with that hole, with the dryer vent and the printer enclosure that I got from Amazon that's behind me back here, still in the box, that has a built-in electric fan, I'm a lot happier with what's going on. So I want to thank you folks for coming by and hanging out and chatting and everything like that. And we'll see you folks in 2 weeks back here. But otherwise, I'll be on Twitch tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central Time for 3 hours. And I also do Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Central Time, also for 3 hours. And I'll be painting. What am I going to be painting this week? I don't even know yet. Probably a big fish man. I think I'm going to work on that fish man, because I mostly finished that skeleton guy. And yeah, we'll see where that goes. All right. Well, thanks again, folks, and have a good day. And I can't see my buttons here. The microphone's in the way. Thanks for watching.